The radical. Fundamental principles of freedom, rational self-interest, and individual rights. This is the Yaron Brook Show.
All right, everybody, welcome to Yaron Brook Show on this Monday. I hope everybody had a fantastic weekend and you're looking forward to having a fantastic week. All right, let's jump into it. I will remind you that tonight at 7 p.m. East Coast time, we've got Gene Maroney Binswanger, who's going to come on and talk about setting goals for the new year. So we're going to talk about how to set goals, how to figure out what your values are, how to set goals, how to plan for achieving those goals. And Gene is great on these things. So join us. Questions about issues related to values and goal setting and introspection. Gene is very good on those issues. So join us tonight at 7 p.m. East Coast time. 7 p.m. East Coast time. All right, let's see. Yes, we're going to do the news. We're going to do the news right now. I've got a hard stop, so we've got about 2 hours, and we will go from there. Let's start with the latest pardon that Trump gave out last week was to a Democratic congressman. A lot of people were surprised that Trump was giving a pardon to a Democratic congressman. This is a congressman who he and his wife faced federal charges of bribery and money laundering tied to over $600,000 from Azerbaijan and a Mexican bank. Ooh, I know people in Azerbaijan. I wonder if they'd give me $600,000. Anyway, it's not bad for congressmen. And they were found guilty, by the way. They were found guilty of this and sentenced to jail time. And Trump granted a full pardon on December 3rd, so 5 days ago, based on a letter that he got from the daughter. And the daughter's claim that this Democratic congressman was treated really, really badly by the left, by the progressive wing of the Democratic Party, and this is why he went to jail. He didn't go to jail because he was actually corrupt. No, he was set up by the far left. He was set up by those crazy leftists, and that he was not a crazy leftist at all. And if only Donald Trump would grant him a pardon, that would be a slap in the face of the radical left and a win for America First. And, he was very, bipartisan. He has a bipartisan record, and he was good on border security. And maybe, who knows, he would support in the future. I don't know if this was explicit or not, but it was implied that if he got the pardon, he might even support a Republican in his district. Anyway, Trump granted the pardon based on this. Everybody's surprised he gave it to a Democrat, but based on this assumption that this guy would reject the people who sent him to jail, the far left, and embrace Republicans. This is what Trump wrote a couple of days ago. He said, this is in a Truth Social, he said, I never spoke to, he told about the daughters sending him this letter and asking for pardon, and he says, I never spoke to the congressman, his wife, or his daughters, but felt very good about fighting for a family that was tormented by the very sick and deranged people. They were treated so badly. How does he know this? Based on the daughter's letter. Signed the papers and said to the people in the Oval Office that I just did a very good, perhaps life-saving thing. God himself was very happy with me that day. Then it happened, all caps. Only a short time after signing the pardon, Congressman Henry Kulau, I think, something like that, announced that he will be running for Congress again in the great state of Texas, a state where I received the highest number of votes ever recorded. I mean, this guy, i.e. President Trump, he could be a character on Saturday Night Live that John Belushi played in the 1970s, right? I mean, he's so over the top, crazy, ludicrous that it's almost like, he's in a skit. It's not real. He's in a skit. Anyway, so he was going to run again for Congress in the great state of Texas as a Democrat, continuing to work with the same radical left scum that just weeks before wanted him and his wife to spend the rest of their lives in prison, and probably still do. Such a lack of loyalty, something the Texas voters and Henry's daughters will not like. Oh well, next time, no more Mr. Nice Guy, President Donald J. Trump. Anyway, Trump is handing out pardons, some involving his friends, many involving his political allies, some involving the friends of his political allies, some involving people who he expects one day will do good things to him, and some involving people who might actually turn out to sway in the next election, help him sway Congress in the direction of Republicans, because he's worried about what will happen next election. And this guy doesn't play along. He's a Democrat and he stays a Democrat and he's running as a Democrat. And Trump's furious. But I think what this makes clear is how much Trump views his pardons as quid pro quo, that he expects something in return. It could be cash, or in this case, it just could be staying out of an election or supporting the Republican or converting to be a Republican, whatever it happens to be in that particular case. Pardon corruption on steroids is what we get, is what we're getting from this White House. Talk about corruption. So you might have heard over the weekend, this is really big news, that Netflix is buying Warner Brothers for some gazillion dollar amount, some huge amount of money, and a lot of people are very excited. This will combine the Netflix library with the HBO library. It'll also give Netflix access to a major Hollywood studio, which could elevate the quality of their movies and TV shows that they put out on Netflix. And this is kind of a vertical integration of now a studio all the way down to streaming, and just enhancing, I think, the heft of Netflix in Hollywood, and exciting to all of us who love streaming movies and television and everything else. This is Warner Brother Discovery. It has a bunch of other properties, including, I think, CNN. So this is a big deal. However, over the weekend, Trump was, I guess it was Sunday night, last night, Trump was attending a big event at Kennedy Center, and he was asked about this merger, and his response was, Trump, well, that's got to go through a process, and we'll see what happens. When he was asked about whether this deal would go through. And then he said, but it's a big deal. It's a big market share that Netflix would have it after the deal. It could be a problem. Indeed, prediction markets show a 23% chance of Netflix actually being able to close this deal. By the way, there's a massive breakup fee. So if Netflix withdraws from the deal without I guess a good reason being the regulators not approving it, it has to pay Warner Brothers a huge amount of money. But anyway, right now it's at 23%. At the by the end of 2026. Before Trump made the comment, Guess what the odds were? The odds were 60%. So basically, Trump saying a sentence like that basically dropped the chance that this deal goes through by more than half. Now, what's the issue? Well, I mean, from a regulatory perspective, the issue is that Netflix has a very big market share. It's the number one streamer. It would be combined with HBO Max, which would make it even a bigger streamer. And somehow that would be a problem because it would put Netflix maybe over 30% of the streaming market, which is somehow a problem. Not clear why. Trump said Netflix has a very big market share. And when they have Warner Brothers, that share goes up a lot. He also said, Trump said, that he, Donald Trump, would be involved in making the decision about this. I wonder why. I wonder why Trump needs to be involved. We'll get to that in a minute. But it is worth noting that at least Netflix is saying that, look, YouTube is a competitor, TikTok is a competitor. It's not just an Amazon, of course, with Prime and Apple with Apple TV. And there's some big players who are real competitors. That'll be the argument that it makes. But why? I mean, this is not like Netflix, Warner Brothers is going to be some real big monopoly in any kind of definition of monopoly, even without the ability to compete. I mean, that is absurd. And even by the most generous definition of monopoly that the courts often abide by, if they have 30% of the market, that's not like 90, 80. What are they talking about? Why is Trump being involved? Well, I mean, the obvious cynical perspective, but realistic nonetheless, in spite of the element of cynicism, is that he's waiting to see how much Netflix bribes him. He's waiting to see whether the Netflix CEO shows up and argues and contributes to a favored charity of Trump's or something like that, to try to persuade him. Indeed, the Netflix CEO has already met with Trump recently to lobby him for the acquisition. Trump has confirmed that meeting. The Netflix executive tried to argue that Netflix was no big deal monopoly. But of course, I don't think he gets Trump. That's not what you have to argue in front of Trump. You have to say the right things and do the right things to get Trump's approval. But there's a complicating factor to Netflix. And I mentioned this last week, that somebody else wanted to buy Warner Brothers. And that somebody else was a Paramount Skydance. And Paramount Skydance is owned by the world's second richest man, who happens to be a huge supporter of Trump, and the CEO of Oracle, that is Larry Ellison, and whose son, David Ellison, I think, is the CEO of Paramount Skydance. And of course, they are good friends with the Trumps. So it's very likely that they will be lobbying Trump over dinner at Mar-a-Lago sometime not to approve the deal so that they can swoop in and get Warner Brothers anyway. Even though they couldn't compete on price, maybe they can compete on political influence. Indeed, you can tell kind of the influence machine already working. Lawmakers of both political parties, both Republican and Democrats, Darrell Issa, the Republican, which is very disappointing because Darrell Issa I always thought was like a free market guy. But, even free market guys, I guess, are not immune from the appeal from a large donor. Both Darrell Issa and Democratic Elizabeth Warren. Elizabeth Warren seems to team up with Republicans a lot lately. They both have already faulted the transaction and claimed that it has too much power, too big. It would have 450 million users on a global. That's harmful to consumers. That's not good for customers. It's not good. I mean, I was like looking forward to having HBO with Netflix. I would think that would be better for me. But no. They don't like it. Of course, the EU is also going to look at this and review it. The UK will also look at this and review it. I mean, even the House of Lords in the UK is worried about this and they're pressing the government. I mean, why is everybody so worried about streaming TV? Could it be that there is lobbying behind this and there's some political pressure being put in place? Talk about corruption. Here it is. Anyway, for those of you who think that America is a capitalist country and we have a free market here, if we had a free market, Netflix would already be running Warner Brothers. It wouldn't be waiting for approval from the authorities and from Donald Trump, the president of the United States, getting involved personally in the deal. Maybe Trump will say, okay, Netflix, you can have Warner Brothers if CNN promises to give me good coverage. I think that's a good deal. That's probably the deal that Trump will be offering them. Because that's what he thinks would happen if Ellison buys them. If Ellison buys them, he'll have CBS and CNN, and he might put Barry Weiss in charge of CBS as well, or CNN as well. I mean, this is so... I mean, antitrust law is awful and horrific, and it doesn't make any economic sense. It doesn't make any sense, period. And in that sense, it really is, so it doesn't make sense. Antitrust law is corrupt and based on really, really corrupt assumptions, economic and political, and of course, there's a complete negation of individual rights. But Trump is taking it to the next level. Now, antitrust laws is just used as political leverage. Who we go after, who we don't, what deals we approve, what deals we don't. If you're friends with Trump, yeah, sure, your deals will go through. If you're not friends with Trump, you better become friends with Trump, otherwise your deals will not go through. It just adds to the, it just adds to the corruption in D.C., which is already at a all-time historic level. All right. That is where we are. All of you excited about Netflix should be disappointed. All right, I want to play you a little bit of JD Vance. This is an interview he did. This is a segment that was taken out of an interview he did over the weekend that has to do with immigration. JD Vance is on a roll with immigration. He really is. This is his issue, and I think politically it makes sense. This is the issue that I think ultimately gave the presidency to Trump. JD Vance wants the presidency. He's running for president every day now. He's running for president, and he really wants this. In addition, not only is this a winning strategy, but he really believes it. JD Vance is a national conservative. He really does believe that America is a nation of white people. I think that's important to him. And it's a blood and soil kind of nationalism. at the heart of it. How he reconciles that with his marriage, with his children, that is between him and his wife. I have no idea. But you know, that's basically been his position. Anyway, this is an interview he did, and this is a rant, a short rant that he has. It's just 56 seconds long, but I think it's worth listening to, and then we'll comment on. And then I've got another tweet that he put out there about immigration that is interesting, but it just gives you a sense of, I don't know, just how ugly these people are. I mean, you can be anti-immigration without turning it into kind of an ugly, kind of xenophobic, racist thing. But I guess they can't, because that's what they are. All right, here we go. JD Vance.
Who's out of the house is actually evicted from the house because there are people who are going to pay more for rent. And then what happens is 20 people move into a 3-bedroom house.
Now, notice the example he's giving, right? Somebody he knows is evicted out of the house because somebody else will pay more for it. I don't know that you can evict anybody because somebody else can pay more for it, but if your lease expires, you can kick somebody else, have somebody else come in because they can pay more for it. Why? You know, that's called markets. That's called pricing mechanism. That's called private property. Private property, right? Michael says, I give Yaron 20 seconds before he breaks in. It only took 10 seconds. Do you not want me to break in? Do you I mean, what's the deal? I thought this is what you wanted me to do. It's what I'm going to do anyway. Anyway, and now he's taking this example, right? 20 people move into this house, this 3-bedroom house, 20 people. And this is an example he's given as an example of why people are so hostile to immigrants and, you know, what the issues are.
People from a totally different culture, totally different ways of interacting. Again, we can respect their dignity while also being angry at the Biden administration for letting that situation happen.
Now, we can respect their dignity. We'll see how much he respects their dignity in a second. A different culture. Yeah, I mean, that immigrants come from a different culture. Typically, that's the way it happens. Indeed, again, the entire history of America is people coming from different cultures and becoming your neighbors. That's immigration. That's the way it works.
And recognizing that their next door neighbors are going to say, well, wait a second, what is going on here? I don't know these people. They don't speak the same language that I do. And because there are 20 in the house next door, it's a little bit rowdier than it was when there was just a family of 4, a family of 5. It is totally reasonable and acceptable for American citizens to look at their next door neighbors and say, I want to live next to people who I have something in common with. I don't want to live next to 4 families of strangers.
I mean, this is so un-American. It's so frigging un-American. Like, yeah, you absolutely have a right to want to live next to people you have something in common with. It would be nice. I don't think I've ever lived in my neighbors with a lot in common with, but you have a right to want that. But you have a right to use coercion in order to enforce that? Do you have a right to violate people's property rights or their right to move, the sanctity, the dignity of these people? Now, it's true, 20 people. I mean, you have to make it crazy like that to make everybody go, yeah, I don't want 20 people moving in next to me, as if that happens. I mean, again, this is JD Vance, who told us that the Somalis in this Ohio town were eating the cats and dogs, which turned out to be completely 100% bogus. So this is a JD Vance who lies blatantly with no shame in a very articulate, passionate way in order to portray immigrants in the most monstrous way you can portray them. Because you have to create this image of the other to justify doing horrible things to the other. If the other has dignity and is normal and has individual rights and is just another human being like I am, I'm not going to do horrible things to them. But if the other is a monster, if the other is 20 people from a different culture, look different than me, speak a different language, and they're making a ruckus, and they're making noise, and they're interrupting my life, then yeah, they're not completely human. Beat them up, take them away, arrest them all. Who cares? If you really find yourself in a situation where you live next to somebody who you don't like, and it really does bother you, and it's more than just they make a noise, make the noise, you can call the police, you can address the issue of noise. But let's assume that they don't speak your language and they're not like you and they don't have your culture. You know what you should do? You should pack up your stuff and leave. You should move. There is no right to have the neighbors you want. There is no right to have the neighbors you desire. There is no right to determine who your neighbors should be. It's not what it means to be a free people. And the basis for not liking them here, beyond the fact that he's created a situation where there are 20 of them, is that they have a different culture. It's that they speak a different language. But again, isn't that the whole history of this country? Isn't that how we became what we are? I mean, I know it's not popular anymore to say this is a land of immigrants, but it is, like it or not, and immigrants from all kinds of places. Many, even if they all came from Europe, didn't speak the same language. Very few people in Europe, particularly 100 years ago, spoke English. They learned it. And God forbid an American would have to actually find a way to communicate with somebody who doesn't speak their language. I mean, here's the final part of this.
And the fact that we had...
Oh, I guess I saw a longer segment, and in the segment he talks about how disturbing it is. How are you going to go and ask them for salt, or ask them for sugar, or ask them, when they don't speak the same language? Yeah, I know. People have never managed to do that. They've never managed to actually communicate. Oh, no, it's not in the interview. This is his tweet afterwards. What's reasonable is to want to share language with your neighbor, he writes. This is JD Vance in writing. How do you borrow a cup of sugar, resolve disagreements, have a nice conversation? You need a common language. And in America, that language is English. Yeah, absolutely. Then why don't you help your neighbor learn the language? Go over there and try to get a cup of sugar. It's not that hard to communicate sugar. And it's not that hard to teach them the word for sugar. How did people in America resolve disagreements a long time ago when they didn't speak the same language? Now, it's true that a lot of immigrants live in ethnic enclaves. When they immigrate, they all live together. Somalis in Minnesota, they all live in the same place so that they don't have to worry about this and they don't have to concern the English-speaking neighbors. But then we complain about them isolating themselves from the rest of American society. And then when they live next door to us, we complain because they don't yet speak English. You do need a common language. They need to assimilate. But how are they going to assimilate? How are they going to assimilate if they never live next to you? Now, I know what he wants. He wants no immigration. He wants them to stop coming. He wants stagnation. The divine right of stagnation. That's what he wants. He continues in his thing. The far left became so deranged on immigration that they're attacking people for wanting to be able to speak to their neighbors. Really? That's what people are upset about? They can't speak to their neighbors? How many people actually speak to their neighbors? And again, you can move, or you can try to communicate with your new neighbors and try to be friendly with them. And maybe they won't be friendly back. Maybe they're obnoxious jerks. I know quite a few white, American, multi-generational white Americans who are obnoxious jerks, And so do you, JD Vance. Just read the book you wrote about where you grew up. And they knew English. And they were still obnoxious jerks that you wouldn't want to have as neighbors. I mean, this is just encouraging xenophobia, encouraging racism. It's just, this is just playing to people's fears, anxieties, to the xenophobia, to racism, to encourage it, to fuel it, to enhance it, so you can then run as the anti-immigration president, saving us from those crazy leftists who just want to bring in people who can't speak our language so that we have neighbors who are obnoxious to us, or something like that. It's actually not totally reasonable to expect people next door to you to speak English or anything. People next door to you should be able to do whatever the hell they want. This is America. And if they don't speak English, figure out a way to communicate. And again, you can always sell your house and move somewhere else. I'm tired of everything has to pander to whoever is there first. I mean, that is not America. It's not what America is. It's not what made America what America is. So JD Vance also commented on Twitter on a video that a construction company owner, young construction company owner, made. He lives in Louisiana. And this construction company worker is basically making the point that in this, he's driving while taping this on video, and he's making the point that ICE has now come to New Orleans. It's come to Louisiana. And since ICE has come, since there's been stepped up immigration enforcement, immigrant workers have stopped showing up. So contractors who compete with him, don't have, they're not willing to go to the job sites. So job sites have stalled. And as a consequence, this guy who's an American, white, an American, and legal, his phone hasn't stopped ringing. Desperate general contractors trying to get him to come and finish the job that they, non-white guys started, and they're afraid to show up because they're afraid of being harassed by ICE. So, he's frustrated because these illegal labor comes in, they undercut wages, and it makes it very difficult for him to get a job, and they undercut his bids. And now he says it's amazing because the illegal immigrants don't want to come to work. So now he has kind of a monopoly. The government has basically eliminated competition. It's taken his competitors out. And he says he's so thankful to ICE and the Department of Homeland Security. Well, of course. Of course. I mean, the government is basically taking out his competitors. And they're about to ship them off, deport them out of the country. His business is going to go through the roof and he can charge whatever he wants. This is what you call monopoly. Government granted monopoly. The government grants it to people who have citizenship. JD Vance comments on this video by saying, mass migration is theft of the American dream. It has always been this way. And every position paper, think tank piece, and economic study suggesting otherwise is paid for by the people getting rich off of the old system. I mean, JD Vance is so dishonest. So dishonest. I mean, the reality is that every position paper, every think tank piece, and every economic study shows that he's wrong. So, and he knows that, right? JD Vance knows that. So what does he have to do? He have to say, no, it's all paid for. None of it is true. But every economic study, every one of them is paid for. Every one of them. And mass migration is theft of the American dream. Yes, I didn't realize this. You should know that the American dream involves not facing competition. The American dream is about having a monopoly over whatever trade and profession you have and never facing competition from others. I mean, this was exactly the same argument that was made when black workers left the South in the early part of the 20th century and moved north to the industrializing Midwest and Northeast. And they were willing to work for a little less than the unionized white workers who were in these factories. You know what the unions did in order to undermine the competition? They went running to the government to help them against the competitors. People are competing with us and their color skin is different than ours. Reduce the competition. We need to eliminate this competition. Now, you couldn't bar them from moving from the South of the United States to the North of the United States. You can't do that. I mean, there are limits to how much we're willing to do. So what do you do? What do you do? You impose a minimum wage.
For real. You hate your country.
Yeah, that's the guy. You impose a minimum wage. And that minimum wage prices out. You set it high enough so it prices out all the new people coming in. And that was the beginning of the minimum wage. The first minimum wage was advocated for, lobbied for by white workers in the Northeast and Midwest to keep black workers out. Wasn't successful in the long run, just like keeping workers from other countries out is not going to be successful in the long run. It might for a few years, not in the long run. But, you know, it works, and look, it is such a, it's so appealing. It's so easy to fall into this trap. It's so horrible. Look, the American dream does not involve protecting you from competition. Nobody who doesn't use force against you, coercion against you, can steal the American dream from you. The American dream is about going out there and succeeding with competition, with freedom. It's not about protecting you so that you don't face competition, so that you can't fail. It's not about providing you with monopoly power. The American dream is about leaving you free, which includes competition, to pursue your dream and to be successful. No guarantees. So JD Vance is I mean, the whole 19th century was mass migration. And I look right under this post by JD Vance and I see the first comment is so frigging disappointing to me. It's by a woman called Lily Tang Williams. Lily was a student of mine at a leadership program of the Rockies and claimed to be this massive defender of capitalism. Lily is an immigrant to the United States from China. So she knows what communism is like. She knows what democracy is like. She's actually run for Congress and lost. She ran in Denver, in Colorado, and then she moved to New Hampshire and she ran there, and she's lost. But she positions herself as a defender of capitalism. And yet, this is what she writes. Listening to this young man, a father of three, so many stories like this. Democrats, politicians, and many corporations seem to forget about them and their American dream. How about naturalized citizens who are willing to work hard but can't compete with illegal aliens low cost? Why are naturalized citizens not low cost? You could easily solve this problem by naturalizing all the illegal immigrants. You know, just open up the borders to anybody who's willing to work. Some wages will go down. Overall, wages go up. I forgot the economic studies are corrupt. Some wages will go down. Most wages go up. Overall, wages go up when migrants come into a market. Low cost, low status. So it's so disappointing that Lily, in spite of being my student, in spite of having heard the case for capitalism, still buys into this garbage. But that's the problem. Having my perspective on capitalism, having my point of view on capitalism, having my position on immigration, is not a politically winning position. And it requires going out there and educating people. And that's work, and it's hard. People don't want to be educated. People don't want to learn. It's much easier for them to be emotional, to succumb to the lowest common denominator. It's kind of funny because the next comment right under that is a disgusting racist comment, but I guess JD Vance deserves it. The comment is JD Vance's family stealing the American dream, and a picture of JD Vance's family, which is JD Vance and his wife and all her relatives, who are all Indian, not white Americans, Indians. Very successful in this country. The Indian community is the most successful group of immigrants, I think, together with the Nigerians. Nigerians are more on the education side. Indians more on the income side. But all very successful. They must have stolen, since it's a zero-sum world, right? They must have stolen some white American's dream in order to achieve the success and prosperity that they've achieved. I don't know how JD Vance lives with himself. I certainly don't know how JD Vance lives with his wife. I don't get how that works. I mean, how do you live, if you're his wife, how do you live with somebody who espouses racist ideas on a regular basis out there? I don't know. All right, talking about from one, corrupt racist to another, let's move to Tucker Carlson. So Tucker was in, I guess, his new favorite place on planet Earth, Qatar, this weekend at a conference in Doha, where he got to interview one of his favorite people on planet Earth, according to Tucker, not according to me, the Prime Minister of Qatar. And that implies that there's democracy in Qatar. There isn't. I mean, he's appointed by the Emir, by the king, the equivalent of a king. It was one of these interviews where the entire conversation, the entire thing, was about Israel. And of course, how amazing and generous and virtuous and wonderful and peace-loving and haters of terrorism the Qataris are, which is, of course, a complete lie. Tucker said how much he admires the Qatari Prime Minister and is grateful to be interviewing him. Tucker also said that he is buying property in Qatar, and he plans to spend some time there. And then the rest of the time was spent on trying to make a wedge between Israel and America. How bad Israel was, how anti-American interest Israel was, how Israel stabs America in the back. The Qatari Prime Minister never refers to Israel as Israel. He calls them the Zionists. The entire interview, the Zionists, the Zionists, the Zionists. Just truly, truly disgusting. Now, what's fascinating about this is that at some point, Tucker says, Donald Trump is the first president in American history. Donald Trump is the first president in American history to stand up to Israel, because he forced Netanyahu to apologize to the Prime Minister of Qatar for bombing Qatar and forcing Israel to get into the ceasefire. And he's the first president in all of American history, according to world-class historian Tucker Carlson, to stand up to Israel and to say no to Israel. Now, this is so stupid. It's so historically wrong. It is so I mean, I don't know. And people believe it. People believe it. If you see everybody on the internet and how they talk about Israel manipulating America and owning America, and they own American presidents, and American presidents do exactly what America says, and AIPAC is this all-powerful being that controls the world and controls America. It's just bizarre. It's just bizarre. So just to give you a little bit of history on Israel-American relations. This is short, but it's about America standing up to Israel. A few examples among thousands. In 1947, when the United Nations voted on the establishment of a partition plan, go a little forward, 1948, when Israel declares its independence, Truman decides to recognize Israel as a state. Positive. Even though almost all the people around him, and probably Truman himself, believe that Israel will not survive the coming war. Indeed, on that day, the day Israel declares independence, the armies of 7 Arab countries invade Israel. And pretty much everybody in the West, including the Americans, who've never been excited about the creation of the State of Israel, are convinced Israel's going to be wiped out. So they recognize it, I think partially to appease, maybe the apex of the time, but recognizing that it's going to go away. But immediately upon recognizing Israel, just to make clear how much they are beholden to Jewish interests, Zionist interests, Truman imposes an arms embargo on Israel. Can't sell arms to Israel. While at the same time, and the British do the same thing, by the way, while Jordan and Egypt are getting British weapon systems, Israel, nobody is willing to supply them officially with weapons. Israel wins, shockingly. So, by the way, this arms embargo lasts until 1962. In the preceding years, Israel begged 3 presidents, Truman, Eisenhower, and Kennedy, the first 2 years, for weapons, and was rebuffed. Even in 1962, Israel got some missiles from the Kennedy administration, and the reason Kennedy agreed to do it is he hoped that by doing so, he would dissuade the Israelis from pursuing a nuclear weapon. Didn't work, but that was his hope. Indeed, the Kennedy administration was panicking over the fact that Israel was developing nuclear weapons. It's also interesting that at the time, during the Eisenhower administration and Kennedy, the Soviet Union was establishing relations with all of Israel's neighbors, all of them, including the Egyptians. And Israel was the only country that was not becoming part of the Soviet sphere of influence. And it was still true, in spite of all those Jewish donors, that the United States refused to provide any significant weapons. And even after 1962, until 1967, no weapons. Very few weapons. Only after 1967 did Israel get significant weapons. In 1956, when Israel took the Sinai Desert, and with the help of the British and French basically took the Suez Canal, it was Eisenhower that forced the British and French to retreat and forced Israel. He was against the war. He condemned Israel's war. And he forced Israel to give back the Sinai to Egypt, only for Israel to have to retake the Sinai, 11 years later because of Egyptian aggression. Whoops, I didn't mean to do that. What did I just do? Some more example, right? In 1973, Israel was about to wipe out the Egyptian Third Army, which they had surrounded. It was President Nixon and Kissinger who forced Israel not to wipe them out, to stop. A ceasefire was forced in Israel by the Nixon administration in 1973. What else? Ford in 1975 had a reassessment, froze all arms shipments in order to bully Prime Minister Rabin into, negotiating about withdrawing from the Sinai. Jimmy Carter twisted Begin's arms until until Israel agreed to give all of the Sinai to Egypt. Originally, Israel wanted to keep a strip of land along the Red Sea going down to Sharm el-Sheikh for its own security. And Carter basically said, no way, you have to give it all to the Egyptians. Reagan sold AWACS to the Saudis, suspended F-16s from Israel after the Golan Heights were annexed by the Israeli government, and famously guaranteed safe passage to Yasser Arafat from Beirut, in spite of the fact that Israel was just about to wipe him out and his men, and thus guaranteed the disaster that the Palestinians have had since then, and Israel have had since then. Bush Sr., wielded 10 billion loan guarantees until the Israeli government, cried uncle about settlements. Clinton dragged Ehud Barak to Camp David and tried to make him give Arafat Jerusalem and 97% of Judea and Samaria. Luckily, I think for Israel, Yasser Arafat turned that proposal down. Obama made the Iran deal in spite of Israeli objections. And you could go on and on and on and on. I mean, the number of examples is stunning. Stunning. Of the United States, indeed, time and time again, preventing Israel from winning wars. The complete withdrawal of Israeli troops from Lebanon was because of the Americans twisting Israel's arms. I mean, Israel has so often rejected Israel in favor of appeasing Saudi Arabia, or appeasing Egypt, or appeasing the Arab world, that it is ridiculous. So, for Tucker Carlson to say that no American president has ever sided with an Arab state over Israel until Donald Trump forced Bibi to apologize to Qatar is just absurd on its face. But it's the typical kind of nonsense that Tucker Carlson spouts on a regular basis. And then add to that he never asks the Qataris about all the funding that they provide to anti-American programs, study programs at American universities, why they have been promoting the radical left's agenda on American campuses, why the Qatari government supported ISIS. He accepts at face value the Qataris claim that they only support the Palestinian people. They never give money to Hamas, which is complete nonsense. He accepts at face value their claim that they never supported terrorism. They support terrorism to this day. They support Islamist terrorism throughout the world. And he never gets asked about the Muslim Brotherhood and why the Muslim Brotherhood have been basically kicked out of every other Arab country. And the only place where they are welcome is in Doha, in Qatar, where they are supported. Tucker, of course, doesn't ask about any of that. I don't know if Tucker is bought by the Qataris. I don't know if it's an issue of money. I just don't know. Or if he is ideologically now converted to the cause of the Islamists. But what a sellout. What an absolute disgrace this man is. He lies constantly in order to promote an anti-American, anti-individualist, anti-capitalist, anti-Western civilization cause. A really disgusting human being. All right. Ooh, we still got a lot. I thought today was going to be short. I completely underestimate how much I've got to say about each one of these topics. All right, here's a quick one, quick fun one. This is a graph of global millionaire migration. A graph of global millionaire migration. Where do migrants leave and where do they go to? Look at the bottom of that list. This is in 2025. Look at the bottom of the list. Which country has lost the most millionaires in the world? More than China. China's got a big population, lots of millionaires. The most migrations out of any country of millionaires is the United Kingdom because of its tax policies. It gave up on granting any kind of tax benefits to millionaires if they moved to London. That expired in 2025. So they got fully taxed if they lived in London, so they left. And then you got a plethora of new taxes added on, and more millionaires are leaving the UK. And the expectation is that next year, the United Kingdom will continue to be the number one losers of millionaires. Now, if you are like many people on the left who think the world has too many billionaires or too many millionaires and billionaires, then you will be happy that these people are leaving. But if you understand that, when these people leave, it is a massive, massive brain drain on your economy. It's a capital drain because they take their money with them from your economy. And it's a tax drain on your government, which means everybody else has to pay more taxes because government spending never goes down. Now, notice where else people are leaving from. They're leaving from the BRICS. This is another reason why BRICS will never be a dominant political power, right, in terms of replace the dollar and all of this, because they can't even keep their own people. China, India, Russia, Brazil are all losing millionaires. China, India, Russia, Brazil. That's most of the BRICS, 4 out of the 5. Only one missing is South Africa. They just don't have millionaires to leave. Israel's losing millionaires. That's interesting. I guess a lot of these startup, entrepreneurs who sell their companies, then they got a lot of money and they leave. Israel's a tough place to live. South Korea, I don't know why South Korea is losing millionaires. France, Spain, Germany, because they tax millionaires to death. Israel, the same. Taxes are very high. Who gains millionaires? United States, UAE, okay. They set up a nice luxury condo in the UAE. They get citizenship. I don't think many of them live there full time, but yeah. United States, surprisingly enough, as much as we complain, as high as taxes might be, it's still better than the rest of the world. So people are coming here if they're millionaires. Italy has a special deal for millionaires. Switzerland, low taxes. Saudi Arabia, God help them. Singapore, Portugal, Greece, all have special deals. Singapore, again, low taxes. Portugal, Greece have special deals for millionaires. Canada, Australia, I guess relatively low taxes and relatively free places to live. People are moving from unfree high tax being the emphasis in the UK, to low tax free / or free. A nice graph for year-end 2025. All right. Let's see. I think we can go through the next few stories pretty quickly. Russia. Just if you're not sure what Putin thinks of this national security strategy that was put out, we talked about this on Friday. I did a whole section on the national security strategy. Well, the Russian president really likes this strategy. Indeed, he thinks it's completely in line with Russia's view of the world, the view that Europe and Central Asia should be left to the Russians. That's Russia's sphere of influence. China should have East Asia and maybe Southeast Asia. Middle East, we're not sure. We'll fight over the Middle East another time. And America can have, the Western Hemisphere in a sense. Moscow's public acknowledgement of the alignment between Russia and the United States underlines how much cozier the relationship has become since Trump returned to office earlier this year. This is from the Washington Politico story about this. This is a quote from the Russians. The adjustments we are seeing, I would say, are largely consistent with our vision. And perhaps we can hope that this could be a modest guarantee that we will be able to constructively continue our joint work on finding a peaceful settlement in Ukraine. In other words, Ukraine's surrender. At the very least, this is Dmitry Peskov, who is one of Putin's advisors. So, the Russians are happy. I don't know if Americans should be happy. I doubt Americans should be happy. I don't think it's a politically good document. I think Americans should be worried, particularly given that Russia's happy. That should worry people in and of itself. But Russia's happy because it basically leaves much to Russia. It doesn't condemn Russia. It doesn't criticize Russia. It doesn't present Russia as an enemy or a foe in any kind of way. The only part of the world that is presented as one that the United States has to have an active interest in regime change is Europe. This document presents it as the United States needs to advocate for regime change in Europe. Europe needs to become more right-wing. Not right-wing in the economic sense, right-wing in the nationalistic, xenophobic, keep the immigrants out sense, and elevate religion sense. China. Now, I know you guys thought that the whole point of tariffs was to penalize the Chinese. You guys thought that the whole point of tariff was to curb Chinese exports. Well, it turns out that the opposite has happened. China has now a $1 trillion surplus with the world for the first time in history. Exports have boomed in spite of the tariff war. In the first 11 months of the year, China's trade surplus in dollar terms was $1.076 trillion. That's significantly better in 11 months, or slightly better than 11 months, than the whole of 2024. China's very resilient to what America has, to tariffs at least, right? Tariffs have nothing to do with China. They have everything to do with Trump's mercantilist view of the world, his ignorance when it comes to economics, and his ignorance in understanding economic principles. China in terms of exports, China's got huge problems that have nothing to do with Trump and everything to do with its own bad economic policies. The real estate sector is still, a disaster. The debts that the regional governments are taking on, who knows how they will ever, if ever they ever pay them back. The private sector is suffering from over controlling central government. Their economy is not growing. Young people are unemployed, and they've got demographic collapse. Although demographic collapse is probably overstated in terms of labor shortage, because what's actually going to happen, and this is why China is so heavily investing in robots, that they don't need many of these workers because they'll replace them with robots. Robots will step in to continue to work in these factories and to continue to produce these export goods. But anyway, so China is imploding from within, but it's not because of American policy. It's not because what Trump thinks he's doing to them. Indeed, as I said before, Trump is incompetent in dealing with the Chinese. All right, finally, Hamas. You know, we were told Hamas was ready to turn a new leaf, and that Hamas is. I mean, Trump has guaranteed to us that Hamas is going to lose power, and they're going to disarm, and they're going to give up their weapons, or if they don't give up their weapons, somebody's going to disarm them. This has all been promised. This has been said. Well, over the weekend, Khaled Mashal, a senior and, long-time senior official in Hamas, one of the few who hasn't been killed by the Israelis, he was targeted. He was supposed to be killed in Doha. A shame that they missed. Wanted to make it clear that this was indeed not the case. He made it clear that Hamas views the battle as far from over. He made it clear that Hamas is going to insist that it will keep its weapons, that peace can only be achieved by one way. There is only one way to achieve peace, and that is through the destruction of the state of Israel. Only when Israel is destroyed will there be peace. Even then, not so much, because then they'll move on to destroying some other countries. Diplomacy, Hamas will never give in to diplomacy. He made clear that Hamas has no intention of giving up control of Gaza. All in a public speech, which has been translated, and it has been very clear. He wasn't hiding anything. He wasn't pretending anything. Remember, this is a Mashal who lives in Doha. I guess he's Tucker Carlson's neighbor now, one of Tucker Carlson's neighbors. And they don't care about Gazan lives. They're quite happy with Israel bombing them. They know Israel's not killing that many, but even if Israel was killing that many, Hamas doesn't care. Hamas doesn't care one iota about Gazan lives. They care about their own power. They care about destroying Israel. That's what they care about. They don't actually care about, their people. All right. That, my friends, is the news for this Monday, December 8th. Let me remind you that that the show is funded through contributions from you, the listeners and watchers of this show. That can be done through Super Chat or stickers and on the live shows, and we have targets for the show. We're currently $200 short of our 2-hour target. We've got plenty of time to achieve it, so I'm not worried. I also want to remind you that if you'd like to support the show on a monthly basis, which is the preferred method, then you can do so through patreon.com. Patreon.com, just put Yaron Brook Show in there and become a monthly donor at whatever level you're comfortable with, whatever level you believe is the trade warrants. All right, I want to mention, what was I looking for? I had something open here and it's gone. Let me just see 1 second. That. Okay. Yeah, I wanted to mention that the Iron Institute is offering ARI Live. ARI Live are courses that you can take at your own time. You can take them live if you want with a professor, or you can take them. You can watch them whenever you want to. There's no application. You just need to sign up and pay for it. Classes start in January, so now's the time to go look and see if you want to sign up for any of them. These are, I think, courses, all of them, are ones that will really enhance your understanding of knowledge of objectivism. You will become the great professors in like any college level course. You'll learn, it's good. You will learn something from it. Highly, highly recommend it. I'm not going to be teaching any this coming semester, but I will in future semesters. You can find out information about registering and signing up and taking these classes on aynrand.org/start here. You can also get a YBS discount, which is 26YBS10. That's the code, 26YBS10. And by the way, you can hand in homework assignments and get them graded or not. You can get as much feedback from the professor as you want. You'll be assigned a coach. You can take advantage of the coach or not. Incredibly flexible and just incredible value. I wish there was something like this when I was getting started, if you will, in objectivism. Amazing. So take advantage of it. Einrand.org/start here. Hendershotwealth.com, Hendershot with 2 T's, hendershotwealth.com/YBS. Hendershot Wealth is offering products that can dramatically reduce your capital gains tax liability. You can find a lot more information about that and how it happens and whether it's appropriate for you by listening to the interview I did with Robert Hendershot. That interview is available on YouTube, on a playlist for sponsors. Yaron Brook, Robert Hendershot. And you'll learn a lot from the interview. I think you'll enjoy it. And of course, you can go to hendershotwealth.com/YBS to get more information. Also, Alex Epstein. Alex Epstein is a advocate for freedom and energy. He is the #1 advocate in the world for freedom and energy. He has a Substack, alexepstein.substack.com. Incredibly valuable talking points, knowledge. You will learn about the energy industry. You'll learn about what happens in Washington. You'll learn about the best arguments around environmentalism, climate change, and all of that. So check out alexepstein.substack.com. And finally, Michael Williams of defendersofcapitalism.com, defendersofcapitalism.com, one word, Defenders of Capitalism. I've been friends and working with Michael Williams on Defenders of Capitalism for 20 years now. And it's a fantastic program. Check out defendersofcapitalism.com online. All right, guys, let us turn to the Super Chat. We're doing quite well in terms of our second hour goal. We're getting there slowly but surely, so keep it coming. I appreciate it. All right, lots of questions. Have a hard stop in 45 minutes, so let's see if we can get through all the questions by then. Here's the mechanism. This is from Michael. Here's my mechanism by which they perform this blank out. Quote, but the left, unquote. The degree to which the principle was violated by Trump's predecessors is either exaggerated or ignored. Quote, nothing new here. They say as if magnitudes don't matter. Here's the mechanism. I'm trying to completely understand the point. They'll do anything. They'll take power. They'll violate your rights. They'll contradict what they've said in the past. And now the blank out is, but the left, they did it, or they did more of it, or this is the only way to fight them. And, they'll exaggerate, they'll distort, they'll pervert what actually happened and what actually they're doing in order to somehow make it reasonable, make it possible. So, I agree with you completely, Michael. Okay, Michael, the intellectual rot that is the Republican Party has begun to show for what they really are. It cannot be honestly said that they are conservatives. That idea is dead. These are nationalists, theocrats, nihilists. I think they are. I think absolutely they are. These are dangerous people. There is a definite nihilistic streak there. And Republicans need to be repudiated for this turn, even if that means suffering through, God forbid, but suffering through a leftist or at least a center-left government again. There's just no options anymore. Screwed either way. Michael, Dubai and Qatar obviously have some economic freedom, or they couldn't have built those skyscrapers. Having oil above alone isn't enough. Raw materials mean nothing if you don't have the freedom to form them into resources. Well, that's not exactly right. The fact is that the rest of the world has uses for that oil. Qatar can also build, and Dubai can build refineries. They can refine that oil. You don't need freedom for that. You just need the money to pay Western engineers to build it for you. As long as the free West cooperates with them, they can get the expertise that they need in order to create the oil and then ship it out, and the money just flows in. And it is a lot of money. By any standard, it is a fortune. And remember, these are tiny little countries. Now, what they do need is to have rulers who don't immediately waste that money. Indeed, the resource curse in economics, the idea that if you have resources, your economy is cursed, usually is a consequence of the fact, for example, in Spain, during the 16th and 17th century, where they got all the gold from South America, but then they wasted it. The idea is not to waste it, but to invest it in things like skyscrapers and in various things that will attract Westerners to come and bring more capital and investment and expertise and brains. So they allow for freedom up to a point. They create a pseudo-freedom, a pretend freedom, just like in China. Dubai does this more than Qatar. That's why Dubai is the place where all the millionaires go, not Qatar. Qatar doesn't have that many foreigners living in Qatar, wealthy foreigners. Dubai does. They create this sense of freedom, but it's a mirage. At any day, they could clamp down on anything you do. They have full authority over you. They take your passport. You are not free there. It is the equivalent of a dictatorship. It is a dictatorship. It's a monarchy. Equivalent of a monarchy. But right now, they have a benevolent monarch, at least in Dubai. Qatar is a little different. Who, as long as people are bringing in money, as long as they see a benefit of having Westerners there, leave those Westerners alone, and that's the freedom that they have, that's how these countries function. But the source is the huge amount of money that flows in. Michael, freedom doesn't necessarily lead to benevolence if the population is spoiled, entitled, and nihilistic. Benevolence only comes from a healthy philosophy and psychology, even if economic freedom is present. Yes, but that healthy psychology and certainly, and even a healthy philosophy are more likely when, it feeds off of each other. That produces freedom, but also freedom encourages that. So when you have that, you get more of that loop. So even as philosophy deteriorates, the positive psychology and the philosophy of the past, imprinted, if you will, in your sense of life, can keep you going, can keep that benevolence going for a while. So freedom doesn't necessarily lead to benevolence, but it usually does. It usually does. And of course, the more free, the more benevolent. As you start losing freedom, you start becoming more cynical and more nihilistic, and you're likely to be less benevolent. Paul, Harriman commented on Facebook about Trump being one of the best presidents in U.S. history, and those who think differently are worse than Southern slave owners. Many objectivist intellectuals agree with him. I don't think that's true. So, I would like a list of the objectivist intellectuals who agree with him. I can think of maybe two. So I don't consider too many. So I don't know who the many is. I don't know what. You'd have to come on. You have to come up maybe in the chat. List the people, the intellectuals, objectivist intellectuals who agree with him, because I can only think of two who would agree with Harriman. But look, generally, don't tell me what Harriman and Bernstein and these other people are saying about Trump. I really don't care. They've disqualified themselves from being of significance. Adam Ossoff commented on Facebook. Adam Ossoff agreed with Harriman that Trump was one of the best presidents in U.S. history. I know Bernstein did, but Adam Ossoff did that? I mean, oh, you just, I don't think Adam would say that. I mean, I might be wrong. I haven't talked to Adam, but I do not think Adam would say that. So, no. I know he voted for him. Lots of people voted for him. I've said many times I don't consider voting the issue, right? I want to know who are objectivist intellectuals who think that Trump is one of the best presidents in U.S. history. I want to know who those are, other than Harriman and Bernstein. Don't ask me to gossip. You guys are gossiping. You can provide me with the gossip. You're on Facebook. I'm not on Facebook. I don't know who these are. Michael says, Andrew Bernstein just posted, God bless Donald Trump. Hard to imagine that level of mental gymnastics. I don't get it. It's sad. I like Andy. I don't like Harriman, so it's not sad for me that Harriman is nuts. That's just predictable. But Andy I like. So it saddens me that Andy has taken this, in my view, completely irrational position. Daniel says, Shapiro and others like to blame inflation today and the peak after COVID on Biden and fail to recognize Trump's role in it. It's too infuriating, especially from Shapiro. Yeah, I agree. The reality is that the big stimulus that Trump did during COVID was the first push towards inflation. No question, Biden doubled up on it, or maybe even tripled up on it. But it definitely started with Trump, and then got elevated with Biden. And it's sad because they will spin anything to make Biden look bad, because that's a cheap way for them to make Trump look good. All right. Let's see. Michael. If people like Andrew Bernstein simply abandon objectivism, I would just put them in the rank of the unthinking. But they are doing much worse. They are claiming that their delusions rest on the only body of ideas capable of saving the country from future collapse. Yeah, I agree. I agree. It would be healthier for the movement if they left, given this position, but they're not. So we're going to have to deal with it. So, stop listening to them. Stop following them. I've told you, stop following them. Stop sanctioning them. Just ignore, particularly Harriman, who's just despicable at this point. Just ignore it. Ignore it and make sure to make your case. Make it clear that they don't represent all the voices in objectivism, because we don't want the culture to think that that is the position of objectivism. Michael, is tribalism a manifestation of nihilism or the traditional reaction to it? No, I mean, tribalism is a much broader phenomena. Tribalism doesn't necessitate nihilism in and of itself, I don't think. And nihilism isn't always, tribal, although it often is. Tribalism is a broader phenomena. There are different types of phenomena. Tribalism is more of a kind of political, it's also got epistemological, characteristics. Nihilism is metaphysical, epistemological, and moral. It's about destruction for the sake of destruction. So I don't think tribalism is a manifestation of nihilism. Think about the fact that tribalism has existed in the beginning of man, and nihilism is probably more of a, it's probably not a modern phenomenon, but not one that necessarily existed in every tribe that ever formed for primitive mankind. Somebody says, I'm an immigrant and I'm anti-immigration and I'm a capitalist. Debate me, Yaron. No, why would I debate you? You can ask a question. You can use the super chat to challenge me and to make arguments against. But what incentive do I have to debate some random person on my chat? Michael, the Rattlesnake TV guy is vigorously defending Nick Fuentes. Ugh. If the left hates somebody, the right has to defend them no matter what, whether it's Putin or Nick Fuentes. It really is disgusting tribalism. But look, the Rattlesnake TV has, and all of the people who are anti-immigration, almost all of them, when you really push them, not everybody, but when you really push them, a lot of them, it turns out, are Nick Fuentes type racists. Michael, are the intellectuals and leaders behind MAGA cultivating hatred they can no longer contain? I mean, yes. We'll see if they can contain it or not. And we'll see if they want to contain it. Maybe they want to use that hatred. I mean, it's hard to tell exactly what they're going to do and how it's all going to play out. There's still 3 years before the next election. And it's going to be interesting how it all plays out. A lot can happen in a year. A lot can happen in 3 years. So it could be that they want this hatred and they will contain it and they will use it. Lincoln, the Warner Brothers mergers and acquisition deal is like a Taylor Swift concert for finance needs. Nerds, I assume you mean, who wear Patagonia vests as we anxiously await news like millennial women waiting for our albums. Okay. I have to admit that I never wore Patagonia, even though you could argue I was a finance nerd. So maybe I never had the right dress code. All right, let me thank some stickers. Thomas, thank you for the sticker. Roland, Henry, let's see, Alan, Jeremy, Mary Aline, Catherine, Timber. Let's see, Mike Dial. I think I got everybody. Yeah, there's Timber Skid. Okay, I got everybody. Thank you. Thanks for all the stickers. You can keep them coming in. We're still about 120 short of our second hour goal, and we've got 30 minutes to get there, so we've got plenty of time. Although it's going to take me less than 30 minutes to cover all the questions I have. So probably less than 30 minutes if you want to jump in to participate in this trade, value for value, that we are engaged in right here. Paul says, what's your opinion about the possibility of restricting people to one country citizenship? Why? By what standard? I mean, I can understand restricting people not to have the citizenship of an enemy country, but why do you care? Why does anybody care if somebody else has another citizenship? I mean, unless they're enemy countries, and then I understand. I think it's a bogus pretense of some vague notion of loyalty. Most people who have second passports don't, live in one place, and they are patriotic. I have two passports, so I'm a patriot of one country. I consider myself a citizen in full meaning of one country. It's just too much of a hassle to get rid of the second passport, and it's convenient. It's incredibly convenient. I wish I had a European Union passport. I would love to have a European Union passport because it's convenient to get into Europe with a passport. As long as you have passport controls and passport restrictions and visas and all this stuff, getting multiple passports is incredibly beneficial. So yeah, I mean, if you had a proper foreign policy, you define your enemies, and then you would say you cannot have these countries' passport with your own. But for that, you'd have to have a proper foreign policy. You'd actually make definitions about who's who. All right, Lincoln. In less than 10 years, the narrative on hillbilly elegy went from these people are mostly trashy, drug addicted, who had losing their economy coming to the these are helpless victims who need balance. Yeah, I mean, JD Vance's own rhetoric about them has changed like that over the last 10 years. It used to be they're losers, and they need to stand up for the, and improve themselves. It's a self-help kind of thing. They need to get better. To today, we need to bail them out. Robert Sapolsky argues we have zero free will. Whether you become a murderer or wildly successful is determined by your eye color. Good for Sapolsky. I hope he lives his life accordingly. I don't. I have free will. What happens to me, I mean, it's not all determined by me because there's accident and stuff, and there are other people I interact with, but yeah, I shape my own life. Eye color. Michael, some positive news. It's looking more and more like the Supreme Court will throw out almost all the tariffs. Well, if they'll throw out only the tariffs that were established based on the Emergency Powers Act, not the tariffs that are based on, the president's national security prerogatives. So it's most of the tariffs, but not all of the tariffs. Far from all of the tariffs. For example, it won't trash some of the most destructive tariffs, like the steel tariffs, the aluminum tariffs. Those will not be eliminated. Some of the tariffs on China will not be eliminated. So, but it'll make life a lot easier for a lot of people. And I hope the Supreme Court indeed does that, and hopefully we'll hear soon, one way or the other. Anim asked which president were competent on China. None, I don't think. I don't think any of them were competent on China. No, but that's not surprising because I don't think any American president has been competent on foreign policy since World War II, at least. Ian Mirkat, if the U.S. elects Nick Fuentes or someone horrible like that, right or left, what are Israel's options? Glory to the CCP? No, look, I mean, Israel's option is survival. It will survive. Israel, I think people overstate Israel's reliance. Yeah, Israel will not have access to F-35s anymore. It will have to maybe even develop its own plane. It had in the past. It was on the verge of building its own fighter jet. It will have to, there's some other weapon systems. But Israel, I heard somebody say, beyond nukes, Israel has nukes, so it doesn't have to worry about its neighbors in that sense. But beyond nukes, Israel has an unbelievable amount of firepower. Like, we only saw a fraction of that firepower during the 2+ years of war. For example, Israel did not use any of its ground-to-ground ballistic missiles, which it has plenty of. It did everything from the air. And for Israel, maybe everything from the air is easier and more straightforward, but it did everything from the air. It has unbelievable homemade weapon systems that do not require U.S. help. It's a rich country that could get a lot richer. So it will survive. It doesn't mean it will go to China, but it will mean maybe some European countries, and it'll become more self-sufficient when it comes to at least, military weapon systems. Jonathan asked, should the United States have responded to North Korea's invasion of South Korea in 1950 with nuclear blackmail rather than sending thousands of troops to die? I mean, the reality is the United States should not have responded to the invasion. It was none of America's business. South Korea was not any kind of strategic necessity. So the United States should have stayed out of it. If it was going to go in, then yes, it should have used nuclear blackmail in order to stop the North Koreans, and used nuclear weapons if that became necessary. It should not have sacrificed the lives of thousands of American kids for what? for the sake of South Korea, which, I mean, it's a wonderful place now, but those kids didn't deserve to die for that. Lincoln. I sent ARI my contact info for their intellectual incubator programs for their 2026 class. Also applied for a fellowship by Palantir. For those with Asperger's syndrome, which should be great? Oh, so it's a fellowship that they give to people with Asperger's. Interesting. Cool. Congratulations and good luck. I hope you get accepted to both. That would be great. Michael, is objectivism not gaining traction in France because altruism in a part of French arrogance, part of French identity is smug altruistic philosophy? I mean, that's part of it. Auguste Comte, the originator of the term altruism, and the most explicit advocate for altruism, as Ayn Rand understood it, was French, of course. But also, the French are so arrogant that they won't read books written by non-French authors. So, and they don't take ideas from non-French people seriously. So it's just hard to market the book. It's hard to get people to read it. It's hard to get it into the bookstores because it's not by a French author. Michael, will a cure for colds and flus be discovered in our lifetime, or will the FDA crush it? I don't think the FDA would crush it if there was a cure, and you could make so much money off of something like that I mean, I'm sure companies are looking at it. There was some hope that mRNA vaccines would be able to do it, but now, the FDA is crushing mRNA vaccines, so maybe that's the sense it would crush it. I don't know. I don't know what the state of the science or the investment in cures for colds and flu is. Lone dissenter, 100% in favor of Netflix right to acquire Warner. As a movie and disc fan, though, I'll just say, if you love a film or series that's included in your deal, buy a physical disc of it while you can. All right. Why? Because then it will be taken off the platform and you'll never be able to see it again, I guess. And not everything is on disc, though. So a lot of stuff you couldn't even get disc even if you wanted. Daniel, can you elaborate on encouraging assimilation without the government adopting a code of beliefs outside of the rule of law? Yeah, I mean, just don't allow them to take welfare, which means they will have to get a job and don't have bilingual programs in schools. Schools should be in English. Now, again, private schools can do what they want, but government schools should be in English. Don't have them swearing in as citizens using alternative languages to English. The swearing in ceremony should be in one language and one language only. Make English, have a proficiency test in English in order to get citizenship. You shouldn't become a citizen unless you're proficient in English. That'll force them to learn English, which will help them assimilate. So there are a number of things like that, but mainly it's get them into the workforce. Get them into the workforce. But yeah, things like English, school. Teach in school that the U.S. is the best place, it has the best culture, and that they should give up the culture of their homeland and embrace American culture as part of civics classes. But again, once you have private schools, they can teach whatever they want. Jamie, a lobster license costs $500,000 and no new ones are issued. Should government be able to say, I can't harvest lobsters without it? And where is the line? Can we catch them to extinction? I mean, it's a good question. So you have to be able to develop some kind of regime around, you have to be able to develop some kind of property rights regime around fish and lobsters and sea animals. You have to be able to privatize them, in other words. Now, how exactly that is done, I'm going to leave to experts in the field. I don't know, but I know one way is to give licenses, but those licenses, you should be able to buy and sell those licenses. It's quite reasonable that no new ones are issued if the private property, the lobsters, their population is not growing. They haven't gone into new places. You can't create more of the resource. Then it's reasonable that no more licenses are issued. But you have to find creative ways to assign property rights to fishermen over either certain areas in the sea or certain populations of fish. And I know Iceland has a method to do that that's quite effective, but I haven't really studied, what is the most effective and what is the most consistent with property rights method to use. You would have to figure that out. But you shouldn't be able to just catch them with no limitation, because you have to be able to recognize some sense of property rights over over the seas. Let me just say, I'm really this close to blocking Gubberish or whatever his name is. I encourage you not to engage with him. He's not an honest player. He's not asking questions because he's interested in the answer. And I'm very close to blocking him, partially because he takes up so much space in the chat, but also because he spends a lot of time going on different chats in my videos and undermining in any kind of way he can me, right? And just speaking ill of the show, which he then comes and participates as if he's here for goodwill. So this is a destructive guy. There's no positive. So just disengage. The best thing is just block him on your side, and if he continues, I'll just block him on mine. Paul Ferris. Economist Larry Ludlow said, affordability is greatly overrated. God. I mean, the geezer needs to get off the stage. I don't even understand what that means. Affordability is overrated. So not being able to afford stuff, yeah, that's overrated. You should just shut up and be quiet. Just enjoy the eminence, being in the presence and the eminence of Donald Trump. Don't complain. You're not allowed to complain. Not allowed to complain. Jamie, who was the best and worst president in your opinion, and why? I think the best is hard. It's probably George Washington, because he only served 2 terms and left and established the tradition of a 2-term presidency. And he could have stayed and become king, because he helped found this country and create this country and build this country. So I think George Washington is probably number one. Of the non-founding father presidents, from what I've read, the best is Grover Cleveland. Certainly not Coolidge. Coolidge is very mixed, but Grover Cleveland, who was brilliant and had to fight off regulations and government intervention and tariffs and all these things, and I think he vetoed more bills than any other president or something like that, and he was just terrific. I would say Cleveland. Lincoln is again mixed in many respects. He's a great president, particularly given his understanding of the Declaration and its role in America and its meaning, and his willingness to fight the Civil War and engage in winning it. But on the other hand, he used emergency powers to both impose an income tax, to print money, and to have a draft. So those are big negatives. They're not little negatives. They're big negatives. And I did it for a good cause, winning the Civil War. But yeah, I mean, they were still bad. that, I think, puts a blemish on on who he is and what he was. Also, the suspension of habeas corpus. It's also one of his. Whereas I don't know anything negative that Cleveland did. Worst is also hard because there were a lot of them. There's real competition. There's, there is Teddy Roosevelt, who is the first really, really, really bad president in the sense that he sets the tone for the rest of the 20th century. There is Woodrow Wilson, who did some of the most horrific things in American history. Under his presidency, you get the income tax and the Federal Reserve and World War I and a bunch of other things. And generally the first progressive president, fully progressive restaurants. There's FDR, who completely socialized everything and tried to, in a fascist way, take over much of the U.S. economy. And then there's Donald Trump, who has brought the lowest character to the presidency and has diminished its honor more than any other president by far, and has all the kind of attributes of these others, although he doesn't believe in anything, whereas Wilson and Roosevelt, and both Roosevelt, actually believed in something bad, and were trying to impose it. Trump brings a mafia thuggishness to the presidency that's unique and for the first time. So I don't know how to rank them, but certainly Trump, FDR, and Wilson have to be in the worst five, if nothing else. Obama and Biden are pretty high on the list of worst presidents as well, but just not quite as high as these guys. Tamor, have you seen the Manhattan Institute survey on GOP voters' views on the Holocaust, and does it concern you? Yes, there's a general decline in GOP knowledge, appreciation of liberty, understanding of history, and the number of people in the GOP now engaged in Holocaust denial is stunning. It's over 30%, according to the survey, and my guess is it's even higher if you cut it up by age. So it's very, very, very concerning. The GOP has deteriorated. It used to be at least somewhat positive, and it's deteriorated into complete garbage. iCarnivore, tell Governish there's many hours of audio and many pages written about the objectivist theory of free will, where he'll get better answers than a current event show, especially if he's not super chatting. Yeah, but the point is that he's not interested in better answers. He's not interested in a real discussion. He's interested in poking. That's all he wants to do is poke. He's interested in subverting. He's interested in undermining. He's not interested in an honest discussion about free will. There is a ton. There's some excellent stuff by Ankar Gate and Greg Salmieri and Harry Binswanger. Has done some. He's just a weird. I think he's a weirdo. I'm sure he's a weirdo in person, but he's a weird type of troll who has nothing else to do but come and ask the same question over and over again and everything, but in addition, undermine. Now let's assume, he wants to be part of this, community, and he wants to engage, and then he undermines it by trashing the show at every opportunity that he has, and trashing me at every opportunity he has when he goes on chat. So there's no honesty there. There's no there. There's nothing to deal with. Lincoln, good news. Found out all my AP credit transferred over to University of Arizona, so I actually have more than a year of credit built up and will graduate early. Congratulations. That's really, really, really terrific. Good job. And I will get back to you about the talk at Arizona as soon as I know when I'm coming out there. Jamie from Canada. In The Big Short movie, Pitt's character said every time the employment rate drops 1%. 40,000 people die. I couldn't find out whether that was true or written for the movie. Do you have any knowledge? Every time the employment rate drops 1%, so 1% fewer people are working, 40,000 people die. I think that's made up for the movie. I think it's just a way to dramatize the point. I don't think it's real. Jamie from Canada, what would they die from? Right? People here want to save a public beach from private purchase and building of a golf course. Who should get their way? Well, I mean, everything public should be purchased privately. That is, you should privatize all public land. And then, the private owner should be able to do whatever they want with it. Assuming it's not infringing on anybody's rights, like it's not polluting your property, not noise or whatever, and they build the infrastructure necessary to run a golf course or whatever. So, yep. So, I believe all property should be privately owned, and private owners should have wide latitude in terms of what they do with it. There should be very few things where the government steps in and says you can't do that. All right, guys, thank you. Thank you to all the super chatters. Really, really appreciate it. Thank you to everybody here. I will be back tomorrow. We will have shows all week. I will see you then. Have a great rest of your day. Bye, everybody.